welcome to HERStory Lessons podcast.
Yay! The inaugural run.
Boom. I'm so excited.
Me too.
Because my girl is here, who I love, because who in the world is going to be like, okay, I'll be on your podcast less than 24 hours after asking her.
This one.
That one, because listen, Kristy, I love her. She's so professional. She's a senior leader in the banking industry. She mixes with high-level execs and people on her level. Is like she's high altitude right there. However, she's the type of friend that we have a little saying, we gonna grease up. This is my girl I call if I need to grease up.
That's
I
right.
see that bat call out there.
That's right.
I'd be like, cuckoo. And here come Kristy flocking with her Vaseline.
And my sneakers.
And her sneakers.
And some leggings.
And some leggings. Ready to take off them earrings and grease up for her sis. So I appreciate you and how awesome you are to do this with me.
Let's not forget, I show up for you on the other side too, though. Like,
oh, absolutely.
We need to be polished up and presentable.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I really, if I had anybody, I couldn't think of anybody else who would do this with me, honestly, and who could relate to what we're going to talk about, especially, but has the funness that I need to bring, and she brings it out of me too.
Yes, I will say it is a mutual thing.
Yes.
No judgment, and I think that's one of those things that it's a gift, especially between women and minority women, being able to do that. So having that ability and understanding that level of empathy when, okay, my friend is in need in this way.
Yes.
This is the mode we need to switch to.
Right.
Hence the topic we're going to be talking about today.
Good. Intro. Code switching.
Yes.
Okay.
It's real.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what I read code switching is by definition. It's the switching from linguistic system of one language or dialect to another. So basically we're bi or multilingual because you know how to code switch.
That's right. Because
culturally, code switching is you can switch from professional mode to sister girlfriend mode, or hanging out, like you think about Obama. Right. Obama has the art of code switching
down to a science.
Right.
It is
from
an art.
Dap
yes.
to like the handshake with the guy standing next to him that don't understand the culture.
But I think the thing that he brings to it is a level of authenticity.
Absolutely.
And so he makes it more and still makes it more acceptable and more comfortable. So conversations that probably couldn't take place before in a more comfortable, relaxed way, he made it cool and made people feel more comfortable. And I think we're evolving from a society of being so uptight and so polished with these 90-degree angles that it's okay for us to let our hair down.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of our generation and the one that's coming is driving that as well. You see it definitely more in the corporate environment.
And the increase of people in our community that are being more educated and getting high-level education, but they come from different backgrounds, and then they're bringing that culture and into the boardrooms, which is changing. It is changing people's perspective of our people, our community.
No, I'm with you. And I think I experienced that as well, kind of moving and evolving throughout even my career, of this pressure of having to kind of switch from one train of thought and communication to another as a means of assimilating and being accepted. And just really making sure that you feel heard and quieting your authentic self. And I think now there's been a movement with so many of the events that are going on in our country. We're seeing where major corporations are responding and reacting in a way.
Woke corporations.
Yes. Yeah. And so now it's becoming, it's just becoming more acceptable.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm glad to see, where 5 or 6 years ago, I had to somewhat change myself in order to fit in. Now I can bring more of my authentic self to the table. And for some it does make them feel a little uncomfortable, but I think it's...
Well, tell me what it was like before you finally kind of walked into this feeling of identity and saying, okay, I gotta just be who I am and not have to feel like I have to switch it on and leave it on while I'm in these professional conversations and in these environments.
Yeah, there were two sides of it. I would say with my more Caucasian counterparts, I had to be on point. And you know, the accolades that I got were, oh, she's so articulate, and she this and she that. And it's like, okay, so I have a BS as a double major. I have an MBA. What would you expect? I'm smart, I'm intellectual, I'm leveraging that no differently than the next person. So why should it be something that's applauded?
Right.
And then as you move into, you know, throughout my career, I started seeing more people that looked like me.
Yes.
Once upon a time in the boardroom, you know, not everyone looked like me.
Right.
And and it's very intimidating. So I think as I see individuals coming along the way, people who are, you know, even my direct leadership now looks very diverse and is more open to having the conversations that were pretty much taboo in the past. You're seeing that. And I also think that the generation coming behind us is much more empowered. They're bold. They are not here for it anymore. Our parents' generation and prior to that, I think the 60s are still so real to them, and they still feel very muted and intimidated to some extent.
Yeah.
So some of those pains and aches in the past are real.
To kind of like minimize who you are, where you come from, and kind of like echo this voice of being like the other people.
It's true.
Yeah.
And then here's the flip side to it. Then your minority friends feel like you're just not black enough.
Absolutely.
And that became a challenge of vocabulary.
And that's when you learn to switch.
It's true.
That's what I was going to like tell. Like when I was a kid, I grew up in the suburbs. So switching for me is like when I talk to my friends, you know, mostly at church, we interact with people who look like us. But at school, I knew how to switch because you felt this level of discomfort if you showed them too much of who you were. But it becomes so conditioned in you that you don't even realize that this is what you're doing and how you're minimizing or kind of pushing down your true self.
Right. So I think what I have incorporated, and I attended a conference not too long ago about diversity and inclusion with minority women. And I took some nuggets from there that I've seen really play out well for me. And some of that discomfort is kind of identifying barrier breakers, right? So find things in common with people. When you're in those awkward first encounter moments of, you know, where can I connect with this person? Is it we've been somewhere on a vacation, you know, went to the same location, our kids. For me, it was sports. Usually no one would ever think that I'm into football or Carolina basketball as much as I am, but that's something that will pique someone's interest. Right, connect with them, build that relationship, and then you springboard off of that. Then I think it disarms them in some way, shape, or form, and they realize I'm just another person just like me. And then also bringing my authentic self to the table. I think as moms, we tend to, in a corporate environment, be viewed differently because we have those obligations. And we have a tendency to kind of leave our kids back at home and leave our obligations back at home. And it's like, no, my day has to end at this time because I have to do A, B, C, and D. And as long as I'm checking all the boxes, we should be good to go. So it's owning that and not being apologetic for it at all. We should be applauded for all that we can accomplish and do, and it not be something that is, you know, looked at as just this
your first measure of who you are.
Exactly.
So like, to me, code switching is not just about how you speak to people, but also your appearance too. I mean, we make choices about when we're going certain places to put on certain things, to have our hair a certain way. And like a lot of people are now open to allowing people, or I'm gonna say allowing, but being comfortable with people wearing their braids in the boardroom. Like, have you seen that with your...
And the pandemic really did that because no one was going to get their hair done.
Right.
So everyone had to go the natural route.
You see that Zoom call.
Yeah.
But not be a pick in their head, but you
but
know.
it became, yeah, even with me, I'm, bone straight right now in the summertime when it gets warm, I go totally
Curly.
natural curly.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, the feedback is, wow, can I touch your hair?
Oh, don't do that.
But here's the thing, no, Mimi, do that. That is a moment.
No.
You can't be indignant. You have to leverage that moment as a teachable
Did I
moment.
ever tell you about that time we were when we were in Austin? Me and Charlie and Harper went to a train ride, and part of the train ride is that you would stop in and get something to eat and stuff. The train ride was whack, but while we were at eating, this woman, Caucasian, came up and was like, "Oh, she's so pretty. Can I touch her hair?" I was like, "Excuse me."
I know.
Like,
But
I'm
we're
sorry, I'm not
conditioned-
there yet.
Yeah, we're conditioned to respond and react that way, but I would challenge people to take that into a teachable moment. Educate, because that's how you pay it forward.
Would you say don't ask black people to,
No,
you can touch their child's hair?
not us.
Oh.
How we react and how we respond.
Okay. See, there's my lesson. In her story lesson.
Right, because it may not have been that person's intent to offend you.
Oh, I know it
and
wasn't.
they don't understand why it's viewed that
Sure,
way.
right.
So even when my counterparts at work say, "Oh, well, you could get away with doing that," help me understand why. Why do you think that?
They say that to you?
Mm-hmm. When I go curly, or I go straight, or I put color in my hair,
Because
anything along those lines.
You're an ethnic woman, you can get away with wearing your hair curly.
So we took it
because we feel like we can't get away with certain things that they do.
Right. But that's more verbal, right? So when we speak up, we are the angry black woman. We have to watch and curb how we assert ourselves. And again, I would challenge people to say, no. You as with anyone, any individual, it's your how, right? You can still get your message across. Right. It's just the manner in which you deliver it. And some of what people may perceive and receive could be how you're projecting. So it's never just on one or the other. You do also have to think about, what am I putting out there? Mm-hmm. How are they receiving it? And how can I help change their perception so that they are better for it moving forward? And I think that's another key, is leveraging those teachable moments.
I mean, I agree. I mean, but I also have to watch out for that fragility there, that like, okay, it's not my job to educate you to make you feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. When I walk through these spaces all the time, and the first thing I experience is there someone in the room that looks like me?
Right.
Because we always know when we see each other, we give that nod like, what up?
It's true, right. But that still also demonstrates somewhat, we're mimicking kind of the clique, right? And the thing is, we've always been outside of the clique. So our solution to that is to form our own clique.
Own group.
But why not be the tie that binds?
Oh, that's very powerful.
So yes, maybe identify the other person who looks like you in the room, but then let's invite someone who doesn't look like us and show the others how we can all come together. And wow, look at those three very diverse people having a great time.
Have you experienced that before? Were you
very much so? Yeah. And you turn those awkward moments into laughable ones.
Is there a time when people have been resistant to that, where you found that one fight the power sister or brother?
Yeah, and they don't want any parts of it, and that is perfectly fine.
Right.
That's just respecting people's differences. Right. And on the flip side too, right? You have people that just may not want to understand you, your culture, your background, or anything along those lines. Mm-hmm. My friends, my network runs, the entire color spectrum.
I know it. Yeah.
And I have some that just would prefer not to be bothered. I have some that are surprised that I have Caucasian friends.
Really?
And they want to get to know them. And I have individuals who have formed their own relationships outside of ours, which is totally...
The banking industry, for a long time, you've been climbing the ranks into high levels. Like, has there ever been a time where you've felt like you needed to switch back to, wait a minute now, let me get you straight.
You got me
the wrong.
Yeah.
You got me right. Right.
You must
tell me about that, and then tell me about what was that moment of clarity where you were like, I'm at a level where I can no longer switch. I can no longer kind of do that because it doesn't benefit me, or it just I can find a better way.
Yeah, I think, it has to show up from time to time. You
It
can
has
only
to show
be but so diplomatic, right? Diplomacy only gets you but so far.
True.
And then at a point, when someone, and it really just boils down to respect. When I've had to do it, again, I do it in a very professional manner. I'm very firm, straightforward, and concise. And then I make sure that I'm understood and that we are clear moving forward, that whatever just happened will not happen again.
Because I'm sure people have, like, for people out there who, like, you've been groomed in certain respects, and you've been able to kind of be in a very diverse environment most of your life. But there are some people who come from places that maybe have not been exposed, and so, but they have the education and they go up in the ranks, but there's their piece, they try to kind of maintain or tame that piece, part of them, but then they make that mistake of kind of like the roar where we're like, hold up,
It comes out.
yeah, how do you redeem yourself from that, or kind of change people's opinion once they've seen that side and they've witnessed kind of that, like,
So you have to give yourself patience and grace, just like you do with others. And so you are going to make mistakes. And a lot of what I learned is by observing others, customizing it to make my own, and learning from my mistakes. So, there have been times where I've had to course correct, or I have to check myself and recognize, you could have handled that a little differently, or no.
Forgive yourself.
But you gotta,
keep
patience
moving.
and grace is one of those things. It is one of my mantras at the office, and people always applaud me for it, because it really just encompasses how you have to handle any situations, whether it's change management, anything along those lines, process changes, stuff like that. You got to bring that to the table and understand that as long as you come out on the other side with kind of a unified and aligned front, then you're good to go. But those are growing pains, and they're necessary. I welcome that. I love the valleys, because that means I'm on my way to a peak. So that's it. But
and not just grace for yourself, but the grace for the people who may have a different perspective of who you are, may have been turned off by the experience, to realize that they've seen a side of you that they may not be used to, or this is distasteful to them, and allow them the time to kind of start to kind of warm back up to you, or to trust that you're a safe space for them.
We're human, and I think showing that, I think we spend so much time trying to project this perfect image. I love when people see my mistakes from time to time, I'll be honest.
I know you love time.
Not every single time, but I think it's a learning experience, especially for those who are coming up. My legacy means nothing if I don't impart something on the people who are coming behind me. So they need to see me make mistakes, how I course correct, how I mend relationships, how I build bridges moving forward. And how I can help, influence people to start thinking differently. And sometimes that takes time. It can take 6 months to a year to really start driving people in a different direction. So I think that's a huge piece of it as well. Is, again, we're human. You have to approach things with a mindset of forgiveness and patience and grace, and move forward.
Great lesson.
Well, I'm glad, especially at the last minute, but we got here.
Guess what, girl? We done, and we did it.
Yay!
I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you for being with us for HERStory lessons, and we will be back soon.
Again.
Bye.
Bye.